저기요.
This person was behaving appropriately just now. The next second, there was a great contrast. No one knew that the man who behaved strangely and chose a random flight would bring an unprecedented Resident Evil to this plane in 10 minutes. And with the appearance of a little girl, the man's erratic target will also be locked. Because of the long queue in the bathroom, the girl in a hurry walked into an empty next room in a hurry. As everyone knows, greatest magicians, this choice actually put him in danger. I saw that the man endured the severe pain and stuffed a container under his armpit. And just as he was tending his wound in front of the pool, a subconscious turn made him realize that there seemed to be someone in the compartment, so he walked over slowly.
저기요.
In order to treat his daughter Xiu Min, who suffers from severe eczema, Lita specially took her to Hawaii for treatment. However, they are unexpectedly targeted by a man in a suit who behaves strangely. He came uninvited, took the liberty of accosting him, and offered to ask about the destination of the trip. Seeing that Lita was silent, he actually leaned over to check their ticket information directly.
아저씨 이혼하셨죠?
나 알아요? 의원 뭔 의원이야?
And when he saw his daughter whispering softly to lead off, he suddenly became extremely nervous and even tried to interject.
진짜 왜 이래?
얘 지금 나보고 뭐라 그랬잖아요.
사람이 미쳤나?
I saw lead already pulling Xiu meant to turn around and leave. From then on, the mother and daughter came into the man's sight. The next second, the man in the suit came to the ticket counter and bought a ticket to Hawaii. So he received a call from the elementary school, but the police initially thought it was just a prank and didn't care. However, the criminal policeman Son Weis still handled the matter cautiously, just in case. He found the children who had called the police. After some questioning, it was learned that the suspect lived in this nearby apartment building. So he and his colleagues went to the suspect's residence. As soon as the police entered the door, they smelled the pungent rancid smell and rushed towards them. Song Wei shouted into the dark room, and when he saw that no one responded, he continued to grope into the house by the light of his mobile phone. Song Wei reached out and turned on an electric light. A rudimentary washroom comes into view, but the view is obscured by the curtains. Just as he was about to step forward to open the door, he suddenly received a call from his daughter, and his heart warmed.
아니, 엄마 어디 갔냐고.
Song Wei, who had adjusted his mood, tried to open the curtain again, but fortunately it was just a false alarm. When he walked out of the room, he felt a chill hit him, and then he found a corpse in the corner. At the same time, the passengers boarded the plane one after another, and Lita and Xiu Min also found their seats and put their luggage away. But in the next second, he was surprised to find that the strange man in a suit in the airport also appeared on the plane. Although the other party did not behave abnormally, his intuition told him that this man must be hiding an ulterior secret. With the roar of the plane, a nightmare journey quietly begins. On the other hand, the police quickly arrived at the scene to investigate and found that the victim had died of some highly toxic agent. This is also confirmed by a large number of videotapes as they record the course of a series of biological experiments. The technician concluded that it was a deadly virus that was extremely contagious. So many experiments seemed to be conducted to test how to shorten the incubation period of the virus. The situation was urgent, and Song Wei hurried to the airport with his colleagues. At this point, in the closed cabin, the passengers were unaware of what was about to happen, still basking in the brief comforts that the journey brings. As the man in the suit slowly got up, a catastrophe officially entered the countdown. The man endured the severe pain, took out the container hidden under his armpit in advance, skillfully assembled the spraying device, and then sprayed the virus powder in every corner of the bathroom. Then, one is world's greatest magicians. He calmly walked out of the bathroom with an eerie smile on his face, said to Xiu Min, who was about to go to the toilet.
화장실 가게? 화장실 갈 거야?
Xiu Min was so frightened that he stood still, and the man took the initiative to make way for her. But in the next second, The bathroom was preempted by an uncle.
미안해. 아저씨가 너무 급해서 미안해.
Then in Hondia's words, the man in the suit leaned over and said a few words in Yuman's ear. The uncle sitting on the toilet saw the powder falling in the air and thought it was dust falling from the ceiling. So he impatiently brushed his hair a few times and complained to the flight attendant Xiao Mei after going out. When he returned to his seat, he slapped his body in disgust, unaware that this action had accelerated the spread of the virus. At this time, Xiao Mei came to the bathroom, touched the powder that fell on the sink, approached her nose and smelled it, and after finding that there was no smell, she wiped it with a paper towel. At this time, Li Dao was awakened by a jolt and accidentally saw a man sitting next to him, playing a short video in which someone threatened to hijack the plane. The man apparently scoffed at the prank, but Li Dao was stunned because the man in the video was sitting in front of him. To make matters worse, Li Dao earned an even more terrifying news from his daughter. Subsequently, he found the flight attendant, artist magicians adding rants, informed the entire crew of the video content, and told the strange behavior of the man in the suit at the airport. He concluded that the man must have something hidden under his armpit. At this time, Yuman also said what the man in the suit whispered to her. For safety reasons, the purser approached the man for questioning, but he firmly denied everything. From his business card, I learned that he was also a researcher in a multinational pharmaceutical company. In order to appease Li Dao, the purser said that he would closely monitor the man's movements. At lunchtime, Xiao Mei, a flight attendant who had just cleaned the bathroom, was preparing lunch for the captain. But what he didn't know was that the powder on his body had already fallen on the steak, and in the next second, the sumptuous steaks, it was eaten by the captain. On the other hand, Song Wei and his colleagues, who rushed to the airport, learned after some questioning that the suspect had boarded a plane, and Song Wei immediately inquired about the flight information of the plane. In the next second, Song Wei realized that the place where they were was not Hawaii, so he was relieved. But then, he realized that the situation was wrong and hurriedly called.
번호를 누르면 이 하와이 아니면 하와이 맞지?
The flight attendant then hurriedly checked the passenger list and found that his wife's name was among them. Song Wei suddenly felt desperate, and in a hurry, he didn't think much about it, and rushed directly into the ground command center. So he asked the administrator to contact the captain immediately. At this time, the effect of poison powder has begun to appear. The first man to walk into the bathroom was not only itching all over his body, but also had an unknown rash on his hands. He went to the bathroom uncomfortably, and just as he was about to look in the mirror, blood flowed from his nose, and then his eyeballs suddenly burst. In severe pain, he strode to the cabin in a panic, trying to get help from everyone. But before he could take a few steps, a large amount of blood gushed out of his mouth, and the scene attracted everyone to watch. At this time, a passenger in the crowd claiming to be a doctor rushed forward to prepare for the rescue. But after some examination, it was found that the man had unfortunately died. Hearing the news, the passengers in the cabin fell into a panic, but the man in the suit showed a smile at this time. Seeing this scene, Li Dao concluded that the man's death must be related to the man in the suit. So he angrily rushed at the man in the suit, and the two scuffled together. In the fierce staring, the wound under the man's armpit was exposed. At this time, a message from the ground command was also received from the cockpit. The other party informed that a man named Liu Zhen, she was very likely to hijack the plane. Just as the co-pilot was about to go to confer, the purser pushed the door open and informed him that a passenger had died suddenly. So the two went together to verify the situation. By this time, the captain who was piloting the plane had already begun to show symptoms of infection. Soon, the world's greatest magicians, the co-captain Axe unarrived and Timon pulled away the two who were fighting. He then directly questioned the identity of the man in the suit, but the man suddenly spoke English and claimed to be an American.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm an American citizen.
Under the pressure of everyone, the man in the suit had to reveal his identity and could not continue to hide it. He struggled to rush to the crowd behind the cabin, and the scene suddenly fell into chaos. Although the crowd worked together to catch him in time, they didn't notice that he'd been wielding a virus spray in his hand during the pull. However, the crowd did not realize the crux of the problem, and the device containing the virus spray was kicked away, causing the virus to spread rapidly throughout the cabin. Then, the ageist magicians, the ground tower on the other side, also received information from the aircraft. Although Yu Zhenshi has been quarantined and controlled, the cause of the sudden death of an innocent passenger is still unclear, and the time has tightened. The task is arduous. The Blue House Crisis Management Center immediately set up an emergency response team, and the team leader, Fushin, quickly made arrangements on DAS to start an investigation with the pharmaceutical company where Liu Zhenshi worked. Boone knew that the pharmaceutical company refused to cooperate on the grounds that Liu Zhenshi had left his job 4 years ago, and the cumbersome procedures of the Blue House made the criminal policeman Songwei very anxious. He stressed that the virus is extremely virulent and has a short incubation period, and that the situation cannot be delayed and that immediate action must be taken. Next, he proposed to start negotiations with Liu Zhenshi. On the other side of the plane, Chao Mei reported to Dak Sun that the deceased had complained about unknown dust on the floor of the bathroom. Dak Sun went into the bathroom to look around, but found no obvious abnormality. But at this time, some passengers in the cabin had already developed coughing symptoms. For safety, Dak Sun reported the situation in the cabin to the captain in the cockpit. However, as soon as Dak Sun hung up the phone, he found that the captain had obvious viral herpes on his hands. Immediately afterward, the plane received a call from the ground emergency response team, who said that if Liu Zhenshi could provide an antidote to the virus, all his requests would be met. However, their ideas were navi, because Liu Zhenshi's words brought the negotiations to an impasse. For the sake of the other party, he reiterated again with affection. Dax lost control of his emotions and eventually broke out into a physical altercation. At this moment, the plane, which had been flying smoothly, suddenly had a violent turbulence. It turned out that at this time, the captain in the cockpit had died of poisoning, and the plane lost control and fell into a state of weightlessness. The planes tumbled in the air, and the passengers were terrified, screaming in despair, and some even fainted from the fright. Passengers who were not wearing seatbelts were thrown out of their seats and their bodies collided all over the cabin. In the next second, the plane suddenly plunged into the sea. At the critical moment, one of the passengers rushed into the cockpit, but due to the resistance, it was simply not possible to carry out effective operation. At the last moment, Lead arrived in time. He first picked up the reducer, then helped the captain, and tried to control the joystick with the help of passengers. At the critical moment, the two burst out with amazing energy and successfully controlled the plane at the last moment when they were about to crash into the sea. After the plane stabilized, the co-pilot Dax hurried to the cockpit. It turned out the leader had also been a pilot before, but voluntarily resigned due to an accident. The passengers in the cabin had not recovered from the shock after experiencing the test of life and death, but they did not expect Liu and should die in this bump again. As a result, the whereabouts of the antidote to the virus were completely impossible to investigate. For a while, the emergency response team was at a loss. To make matters worse, the chaotic scenes caused by the terrorist attack on the plane were uploaded online by the passengers. With the extensive coverage of the news media, the situation quickly fermented, causing an uproar in domestic public opinion. In desperation, the airline and the Blue House had no choice but to hold a press conference to respond. However, when the passengers on the plane learned that a deadly virus was spreading rapidly in this enclosed space, everyone immediately fell into a panic. What is even more desperate is that passengers continue to fall down one after another due to the virus. Chao Mei, who was still cleaning not long ago, also began to convulse non-stop at the moment, foaming at the mouth in the next second, struggling violently, unable to control herself. Soon after, Chao Mei unfortunately passed away. Seeing this scene, even professionally trained flight attendants could not bear it and broke down emotionally. As the number of infected people gradually increased, the passengers in the cabin began to put themselves at risk. To an immense injury, all passengers with fever or herpes on their hands need to be isolated to the aft of the cabin. At this time, the eczema on ex-Yuman's hands caught the attention of another passenger. The man pointed out the eczema on ex-Yuman's hands and asked them to go to the quarantine area. In the face of doubts, Lee tried his best to defend himself and did not want to argue too much with others, but his insistence was met with an indifferent response from the passengers.
오빠, 그냥 저쪽으로 가면 안 돼?
But the confident and determined Lee was not willing to compromise easily.
여기는 아토피야. 네가 왜 가?
아저씨, 아니 왜 가요? 아니, 우리만
우리 그냥 가자.
또.
우리 그냥 가자. 그냥 저쪽으로 가자.
괜찮으세요? 스포가 있으시면 후방 쪽.
In desperation, Lida finally made a compromise. Unsurprisingly, the situation in the quarantine area was also terrible, with coughing echoing throughout the cabin. For the sake of his lover, Song Wei didn't want to sit still, so he went to the pharmaceutical company where Li Zhenshi once worked, intending to inquire about the antidote. However, they refused on the grounds that they did not have a search warrant. Then, and the world's greatest magicians, a violent physical altercation broke out between the two sides because of a disagreement. Seeing that he was about to arrive at his destination, Dex applied to the Hawaii airport tower to land, but as soon as he heard that it was the plane that had an accident, the American side did not hesitate to refuse the plane entry, and no matter how much Dex pleaded, it was useless. Although the Blue House strongly protested against this inhumane treatment, the United States was resolute and unwilling to take any risks if it was not sure. In the face of the tough attitude of the U.S. side, the RL case, I did not dare to directly confront it, but could only demand that the plane return to its flight immediately. Although he was unwilling, Dexon could only obey the order and change course. The fierce sunset outside the window once again poured into the cabin, but he brought darkness, not hope. In the last ray of light, the minutes and seconds passed, and the people in the waiting room were still looking forward to the safe return of their loved ones. But in the face of death, life seemed so small, and all the efforts put in by people seemed to be insignificant. Watching the infected fall in pain one by one, the psychological defenses of the passengers also completely collapsed. Just when everything was in a desperate situation, Sunway received a phone call, which turned out to bring a turn for the whole incident. The caller was none other than Liu Zhenshi's colleague. He confessed that for years ago they had worked in an experimental group and had successfully conquered an infectious virus from the Middle East. However, due to the violation of regulations to take away virus samples without permission, both were fired from the company. He speculated that Liu Zhenshi, who had an extreme personality, held a grudge because of this, which led to this tragedy of revenge on society. In order to dissociate themselves from the relationship, pharmaceutical companies have gone to great lengths to cover up all information about the antidote to the virus. After hearing the news, Songwei immediately informed Fushinen came to the headquarters of the pharmaceutical company again, and the company's executives relied on the headquarters in the United States. The other party rejected Songwei's request without a search warrant and turned him away again. At the critical moment, Fushin led the officials of the Blue House to make a strong appearance and put pressure on the pharmaceutical companies. Seeing this situation, the company's senior management can only obediently cooperate. Immediately afterwards, major media began to update their reports that multinational companies would provide antidotes for free. The heartening news instantly ignited the hopes of the desperate families, and the passengers on the plane were even more jubilant and excited when they learned the news. However, will things really turn out as expected? At this time, Dak Sun's situation was not optimistic, and he was not sure whether the plane's fuel would be able to support his return home. So he said that the best plan at the moment is to make a forced landing at the nearest airport in Narita, Japan. However, upon learning of the news, The Japanese side resolutely forbade the flight from entering its airspace, even though the Blue House told me that there was an antidote. Like the United States, Japan took an extremely tough stance and refused the request to land on the spot. In the face of Japan's resolute attitude, the pilots were reluctant to change their course, and the Japanese side even sent to fighter planes to expel them. In a flash of light, four flashbangs grazed past the plane. After the flash, the fighter suddenly disappeared, and then a red light lit up overhead, and the fire appeared directly above the plane and issued an ultimatum. Although the situation is extremely critical, Dak's son is no longer able to support himself at this time. He pulled down the reducer, ready to give it a go, and resolutely decided to force a forced landing. At this moment, there was a piercing machine gun sound outside the window, which frightened the passengers into screaming, and countless bullets flew like raindrops. The fuselage flew by, and the cabin was brightly lit by a fierce attack, and the warning shot did not work. The fighter then walked onto the plane and asked his superiors to shoot it down. In order to avoid unnecessary international disputes, the Japanese top brass rejected the shot-down request. At this time, Dax unlowered the landing gear and informed the Japanese tower of the imminent forced landing. The flight attendant conveyed the news of the forced landing to the passengers in the cabin, and everyone held their breath and prepared for an emergency landing. However, in the next second, a fighter jet reversed course and flew straight towards the plane. I saw that the two planes did not give in to each other and collided with all their might. At the last moment, Dax still couldn't withstand the pressure and lifted the lifting lever. The two planes passed by at a critical moment, and Dax son, who had exhausted his last bit of strength, finally fell. Fortunately, Lida took over the control in time, which made the fuselage stable again. After the incident, the Japanese side explained that the refusal to allow the plane to enter the country was entirely to protect its homeland security. Although South Korea claims to have a vaccine, the virus may have mutated, and it will take at least 3 months to verify whether the vaccine is effective. The news brought renewed disheart to the hopeful people on the plane. As a result, divisions arose within the Blue House. It was proposed that the plane could be landed and the passengers should be isolated. Others have expressed concern that if the vaccine is indeed ineffective, allowing the plane to land could put the entire population at great risk. The president was unable to make a decision, and he did not know what to do. Looking at the little fuel left, Lida asked the South Korean Command Center for instructions. Can he fly to Incheon Airport and land? However, at this time, the staff was hesitant and could not give a reply. Seeing this, Song Wei left the command center and went straight to the virus laboratory.
근데 분명히 허가가 안 떨어질 거야. 내가 알아서 맞을 테니까 넌 바로 김 장관한테 연락해. 항바이러스 투약해서 나 살아나면 저 사람들 빨리 착륙시키라고 알았지?
무슨 말인지 알겠는데 팀장님, 아니 형님.
Then he spoke to his subordinates. Passengers struggle in pain. Toxins and antidotes in their bodies play against each other. Eventually, it laid as magically. The spotlight was on whether the plane would be able to land at Incheon Airport. Protests were launched by people who gathered near the airport to oppose the plane's return. The keyboard warrior instigated public opinion on the internet, making it impossible for the plane to land normally and could only hover in the air constantly. Faced with the situation of infection of all the people in the cabin, everyone fell into deep thought. If there is really no cure, is it really the right choice to return to the beloved? At this moment, one of the passengers stood up and expressed his true thoughts.
내 딸이랑 내 남편 아프면 어떡해? 내가 아픈 게 나아. 내려가지 마요.
Immediately afterwards, the other passengers agreed, unwilling to impose this pain on their dearest people. Ex-Ayuan cried on asking his father if he cannot let the plane land, because he is worried that his best friend will be infected. The purser also informed Lida of the decision of all passengers. Seeing that her daughter had herpes on her arm, Lidia's heart was like a knife and held her daughter tightly into her arms. Lida then sat in the driver's seat, picked up the walkie-talkie, and told the ground consul that they had decided not to return to their brightly lit home. Although it is close at hand, the best way to protect it at this moment is to fly quickly above it. In desperation, Lead cut off the communications signal, sending rental communications, and the plane drifted away. In the dark, the faint light on the mobile phone screen seems to carry the most fiery thoughts between relatives. Just when everyone was in endless grief, Song Wei, who was in a coma in the laboratory, miraculously woke up, which proved that the vaccine was effective. At this point, the radio on the plane was turned off and the emergency team was unable to get in touch with the cockpit. At critical moments, they asked family members at the airport to contact them via mobile phones. When the people on the plane saw the news, everyone cheered excitedly as if they had been reborn. Lead also turned the radio back on and confirmed the accuracy of the message. Eventually, the plane successfully landed at Incheon Airport. In the face of an unknown virus, humans instinctively feel fear. However, when it comes to life and death, everyone's choices are different. There is no right or wrong, and there is no good or bad, because each person is a unique living individual, and all choices come from the essence of human nature.